We've got a couple of awls here, one polished, one raw. The raw one appears to come quite sharp, and I think this is a mistake that a few people are making. They're opening up the packet, they're having a look, and they're thinking that that's pretty sharp. It may well be sharp, but it may not be sharp enough. They tend to grind it down. Whilst it feels sharp, this point can get damaged or burr over, and that actually then acts as quite a restriction to getting the awl into the leather. So that burr needs to come off. I'm going to polish that off. I'm going to polish the surface down. You can see just about the texture of the steel. That's going to add friction to the awl going in and out of the leather. We want it quite smooth. I mean, you can see this one that I'm using. If I get it in focus, it's there's an edge to it, and that just slips in and out of the leather very, very smooth, and it's very sharp, and you can just about see the edge on that. And that's what we're going to achieve. We're going to treat them like very small knives. Now folks, I'm not an expert on steel. I'm certainly not an expert on sharpening or know my stones. I do what works for me. I'm just going to pass that on to you. There are plenty of people out there, and folks, if you are a bit of a knife or steel expert and you've got a better idea, or I've made a mistake, please shout up, share the information, and help people get it right so they can make the stitching easier. So let's have a quick look at what a good awl does and what a bad awl does. Okay, we've got an unfinished awl blade. It looks sharp. It looks very, very pointy. So we're going to pop it onto our leather and we're going to push. And we can see that we're really having to force it into the leather, and we can see that the leather is distorting quite a lot. The difficulty that we have there is, one, it's dangerous. With any sharp object, a knife, a chisel, an awl, if you've got to force it, that's where you're going to slip, and that's where you're going to get hurt. But importantly, is as you push the awl into the leather and distort it, your entrance point may be where you want it because you put your awl onto that hole. But because the leather's distorting so much, your exit point will change, and this could change the line of stitching. You could find that the hole will actually come out of line. So the front may look fine, but the back is up and down, and the holes are closer or further up, closer together or further apart. So we'll take a good sharp awl and we'll put that through. It will still distort because you're pushing against it, but it goes through an awful lot smoother. And just a different awl there. Again, it will still distort, but it goes through without too much difficulty, and you can support it from the back and push it through. So it is important to ensure that you've got a very, very good sharp awl, and yet a further one. We'll just push that through, and that goes in an absolute dream. So that's one of the reasons, firstly safely, but one of the reasons is it will distort the back of your stitching line. So let's look at polishing, sharpening and polishing that blade up for you. Okay, I've got here a piece of carborundum. Now I don't know, there's certainly nothing on the box that says it. I think the grit on this side is something like 200 and the grit on this side is 400. So we're going to take off the rough edge using the harsh stone. And as you look at your awl blade, you'll notice that there's a diamond shape to it. So it's got four sides. And what we're going to do is quite simply run the blade up and down the stone to smooth it off and even it off. Now, to keep that diamond shape, we're going to keep the flat side face up and keep it level, and that'll sharpen the opposite edge of the awl, and then work it up and down. I'm going to take the rough surface off. We don't need to go mad. We don't need to take an awful lot off. We just want to smooth that surface off, and then we're going to turn it and do the other side and continue like that. Don't use a really expensive stone or a water stone. It will furrow the stone. You want something that's just going to be for your awl blades. You couldn't now sharpen a knife on this because there's too many troughs in it and it would just ruin it. So we're going to have a look and we can see that we're beginning to take that edge back, and certainly we're now putting the lines in a straight line down the awl. Turn it over, do exactly the same. Up and down, never this way as you would a knife with the edge. You draw it along. We don't want to do that. We want to go up and down. The reason being is we want to get the grain of the blade pointing the same way, and that's going to work with the leather. So we're just going to keep on working the awl like that. It's not a quick job. Whilst it's going to be a quick video, it's going to take some time. And we're getting happy with that. So what I'm going to do now, turn the stone over, go for the finer grit, and continue exactly the same. Obviously the finer you go, the more time you spend on it, because the less metal is taken off. And we'll keep at it like this. Lovely, that's beginning to take it down very, very nicely. Turn it over to the other side. If you've got a bit of a rhythm going, try and do them all the same sort of time, or if you're of a mind, count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on. So you're not taking more off one edge or one side than you are the other. I probably am here if you're having a look. I'm just going to feel for it. Already that's a huge, huge difference. Lovely, that's the carborundum done. Now I have here a Falkniven stone right in front of me. Ceramic on the back, diamond on the front, and I've worn most of my diamond away doing this, so it's very, very, very smooth. If you buy a new one, a friend of mine brought his new one round and it's completely different, but this is lovely for what I want, because it will begin to put a polish onto the blade very, very quickly. And again, we're beginning to see quite a difference very, very quickly. This can take hours. The more time you spend sharpening and polishing your awl, the better it will work and the quicker your stitching will be. So it's an investment in time now, rather than fighting with it whilst you're trying to make something. And you don't want to be fighting with your awl or making the holes in the wrong position because you're forcing it through the leather too much, because that could ruin a piece. You spent all that effort and time cutting it out, and money, to ruin it with a poor line of stitching because your awl's not working. So however enthusiastic you are at getting started, you've got to show a bit of patience. Prepare your tools. Now whilst you're doing this, what will happen is right at the top, at the tip, you'll build up a filament, and there'll be an ever so fine burr there. That needs to come off. And as I understand it, with sharpening knives, you'll take the blade away from the burr and continue to do that, making that burr finer and finer until ultimately it falls off. A chef's steel is for that purpose. People think that you can sharpen a knife on a chef's steel. You don't. The reason for the steel is because the blade is so fine, as you press down you can bend the edge of the steel over, creating that making that very fine filament to bend over and appear to blunt the knife. It doesn't. It's so sharp it has that filament, but the steel will take that filament off, exposing the edge. So it doesn't sharpen it, it just takes that filament away and makes it feel sharp again. So now we're going to turn the stone over to the ceramic part. Just kick the camera there, do apologise. And then we'll start working that. Now this does take a long time because it's taking virtually nothing off, and if anything all this is doing is polishing the steel. So I'll concentrate on one bit and then turn it over and you can have a look. You see already that is beginning to polish the edge. And keep going like that. Just take your time, be patient, set aside a couple of hours. This is a couple of minutes so far. I've spent no more than 4 or 5 minutes doing this. Now you could have spent a couple of hours at this. Go to put it in the leather and it doesn't go through. It's not happening. It's polished, but it's not sharp. Potentially this filament could still be on it, so we're going to run our finger along the blade and see if we can feel the filament, and there's ever so slight resistance there. Another way of doing it is drawing the awl back along a piece of leather. You see that this line is deeper and that's where the filament is catching. So I'm going to go back to the diamond, over to the ceramic, try again. Better, but still fighting. So now we'll just work that filament off on the leather. We're stropping it. This isn't treated at all. I'm just taking the bulk off. You can hear that filament on the tip scraping the leather. I'm going to work on that. Okay, we've got rid of that filament. So what we're going to do now is get the strop. There we go. And I've got some strop paste here. And we're going to polish each individual edge up as we go. And turn it and do exactly the same, keeping that angle flat. Lovely. Let's see how we're doing there with a piece of leather. Huge difference. You see how easy that goes through now. Now, it depends entirely upon the leather that you work on. I do vast majority of bridle, so I have no issue about putting my awl into beeswax. Now if you're doing veg tan or tooling shoulder and you're going to stitch it before you dye, if you put wax on your awl, that wax will create a barrier stopping your dye going in around your holes. If I dye my shoulder, I dye it first before any tooling goes near it. But bridle, it doesn't matter, it's already waxed. And then that's just going through an absolute dream. You can see that that isn't distorting the leather, if I can get it on camera that is. It's just not distorting the leather at all. That is sharp. You can see what an edge we've put on the tip. And it's the tip that I work on because it's the tip that does all the work. I don't really want this part of the awl sharp. I don't need it. This cuts right at the tip and then this opens it up. We'll do a little row just to give you an idea. And there we are, little row of diamond holes for your stitching. It's a very, very, very brief look. I mean, if I was to spend the hours that I do on the awls, you'd get bored. But, just to recap, ruffle, get a stone, quite rough. I've got carborundum here. You can use pretty much anything. I wouldn't use an expensive. Don't go out and spend a fortune on stones, because grinding something down this narrow will create the troughs, and that's going to ruin the stone. So this is just a cheap couple of quid carborundum stone, probably about 200, probably about 400. The diamond now is probably somewhere in the region of 600. And the ceramic on the back is probably closer to 800 to 1,000, because it's just a smooth piece of stone, but it brings up a lovely polish. And then finish it off on a rough piece of leather, finding that burr, working that burr off, and then if you have stropping paste, if not a bit of toothpaste or jeweler's rouge rubbed into a piece of leather, just to polish off the edge of that awl, and that'll serve you well until you drop it, and then you've got to do it all over again, or you bend it.